Minister's questions.
To the Honorable Prime Minister, has the Minister of State and the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure written to the Prime Minister a letter expressing her concerns with respect to the award of a tender by the National Infrastructure Development Company, NIDCO, on behalf of the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Minister of State did not write a letter to myself on behalf of the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure.
Is the Prime Minister aware that it has been published in the public domain that there are concerns about the award of a contract where the evaluation process has been interfered with by the Minister of Works and Transport, to the point where a junior minister has expressed concerns about how the evaluation and the award is progressing?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you again, Honorable Speaker. Yes, I'm aware of an article published in a newspaper. I made a distinction of a letter received by the Prime Minister, by myself. That's, no such letter was written on behalf of the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure. However, the Minister of State, the member for Oropouche West, did send an email in her personal capacity to me, whereupon I made inquiries as to the process, as to what was taking place. I was given indications as to what that process was. There was one firm that had come in as the first ranked bidder, second and third. I think the Honourable Member for Diego Martin Northeast had alluded to what was taking place when he said that the first ranked bidder was in fact the highest bidder, and that the amount that they tendered was over $100 million more than the second ranked bidder. Correct. The cabinet approved amount was about $308 million. I don't have the exact numbers, but the first ranked bidder on the technicals and so on was way above that by almost over $100 million. Thereupon, I raised it with the Minister of Works, and if I may subsume the second question into the first, because they are interrelated. Is that okay? Sure. Well, we'll deal with them in due course. In that process, we must remember that NIDCO, the ministry is a client of NIDCO, and NIDCO is has oversight of this project. NIDCO called in the first rank bidder for negotiations. Those negotiations saw the first rank bidder dropping their price somewhat, but still way in excess of the pursuant to their rules. I think thereupon, the second rank bidder, who came in much less than the first and the third rank bidder, was called in for negotiations. As far as I'm aware, that process is ongoing.
All right. Well, seeing that we have a series of questions, normally we have 4 supplementary, but there are many questions on the order paper. So I'll give you 1 more supplementary, and we'll go to the next question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was under the impression that I was entitled to 4, but anyway, I tried to facilitate.
Yes, no problem.
Given the fact that the Prime Minister is making a distinction between the officer acting in a private capacity and not as a member of the Ministry of Works, and that the officer expressed concerns, is not the Prime Minister aware and concerned that the complaint was about the interference in an evaluation process, notwithstanding the numbers or who is involved in the process? That the concern was about the evaluation process being entered into and a meeting being called by the minister to deal with the board during the evaluation process. That is the issue.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you again, Honourable Speaker. To some extent, I've answered those by telling you what was the process, what happened on receipt of the email from the Honourable Member for Oropouche West. I had inquiries made, and from those inquiries, there appeared to be no interference with the evaluation process, and indeed, no award has been made to date.
Could I, Mr. Chairman, I crave your indulgence.
No, I think I want to recognize the member for Chaguanas West. He is,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister aware
that NITCO had made an offer to the first rank bidder of $430 million, and the first rank bidder offer was $442 million, a difference of $12 million?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
I am not so aware of any promises made by NIDCO or undertakings or offers made by NIDCO in this regard. I repeat, no award has been made. The process is ongoing, and that is the state of play at this point in time.
The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
What is the role of the Minister of Works and Infrastructure in the evaluation and funding process for tenders and the award of contracts by NIDCO?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you. The ministry, that is the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, is a client of NIDCO. NIDCO deals with tenders and awards of contracts. The Minister of Works has no role in that regard.
The Honorable Member.
Given the fact that a junior minister has seen it fit to correspond with you on this matter in the way it has been published in the public domain, is the Prime Minister prepared to say that the junior minister has no cause for concern?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thus far, the junior minister, the allegations contained in the letter sent, the email sent by the Honorable Member for Oropouche West, those allegations have not been evidenced in any regard. It may well be that the junior minister was not apprised of all of the facts. And perhaps it might suit you very well, as we are all entitled to answer questions, that you direct deeper questioning to the Honourable Member. But from my point of view, and from the inquiries that have been made, the concerns were addressed, were raised, and were addressed to my satisfaction at this time.
All right, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, question number 3.
Mr. Chairman, am I confined just to the wording of these questions as approved by you?
Yes, you
Or
are
could I-
confined to the word.
Or can I use my own wording?
No, you are confined to the wording.
So these are the wording of your question?
Those are the questions approved by the chair, and you are subjected
Okay.
to those
so these-
wording.
So these are the chair's questions?
Well, you submitted questions, and I have done what is necessary consistent with the rules of the standing orders.
Mr.
So
Chair,
could you proceed with
I
your
understand.
question?
Could you restrain my colleague Morapucci?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Question, you are now on question 3.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Speaker, to the Honorable Prime Minister, has the government received the cash proceeds from the sale of the MHTL, the methanol plant that was sold, the shares in that? If so, how much has been received?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I think I can answer this question quite easily. The answer is yes, we have received the cash proceeds from the sale of the MHTL shares. Secondly, it is about 7.4 million TT dollars, which is equivalent of billion, sorry, 7.4 TT, and that is the about in parity equivalent of $1.175 billion from the cash proceeds as US from the sale of the MHTL shares.
The Honorable Leader of the Opposition.
I'd like to go to number 4. I'd like to go to number 4, Mr. Speaker. Can the Prime Minister confirm that all such proceeds from the sale of the MHTL shares are currently deposited with a statutory fund as required by law?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you again, Honourable Speaker. Yes, the answer is yes. The monies have been deposited in the statutory fund and converted into treasury bills by the central bank.
Could the Prime Minister confirm whether in fact that arrangement of converting that to treasury bills conforms with the requirement of ensuring that the fund assets are replaced by like assets and that the earnings of those treasury bonds are in fact in compliance with the law?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
If I may, Honourable Speaker, with your leave, let us understand when we speak of the statutory fund, being an insurance company, you would have to have a statutory fund. If that fund falls below a certain amount, then you have a duty to place any monies incoming into the fund. All the monies have been placed in the statutory fund, converted into treasury bills, and the answer is yes, that this is proper and appropriate with respect to the proceeds from the sale of MHTL shares.
What?
Yes.
The money having been converted to treasury bonds, which are now in the fund, treasury bills, where is the cash from which back those bills? Where is that now?
And I will have to check with the Minister of Finance and answer you in due course. But the conversion into treasury bills, the monies would be deposited with respect to a debit for the central bank, within the central bank. So I can get the details of that for your good self, sir.
The Honourable Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the Prime Minister tell this House when the government proposes to debate the Senate amendments to the Constitutional Amendment Bill?
Honourable Prime Minister.
This is question number.
Question number 5.
Honourable Speaker, the 5.
That is, could the Prime Minister tell this House when the government
Sure.
proposes to debate
Senate
the
amendments.
Senate amendments to the Constitutional Amendment Bill?
Certainly. Mr. Speaker, I find it very interesting that on the heels of calls for government to allow for more time for the population to appreciate and understand the amendments to our electoral laws to strengthen our democracy, that the very voices are now trying to rush us into that which they try to stop us from doing. But as we all know in this honourable chamber, those Senate amendments have been tabled in this House. They have been on the order paper for 2 months, along with other pieces of legislation, and they will be debated in due course. In terms of notice, you have noticed 2 months ago that this will be one of the pieces of legislation which government will attempt to have passed in this House.
The Honourable Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is the Prime Minister able to state the current salary of CAL's CEO, Canadian Michael Gilolo?
Honourable Prime Minister.
The Caribbean Airlines CEO's basic salary, I am told, is $28,000 per month. A housing allowance of $5,000 per month, bringing this to $33,000 per month, US.
The Honourable Member for Chaguanas West.
Will the Prime Minister give an opinion of whether such...
No opinion, no argument. But rephrase your question. No opinion, no argument.
I want to find out is if CAL can bear that kind of salary. That's all I'm asking.
The Honourable Prime Minister.
The salary would have been negotiated with the office holder or the incoming office holder by the board of Caribbean Airlines. And I think we will all want to know that that board has acted appropriately in all of the circumstances.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much is Petrotrin's foreign debt, and can the Honourable Prime Minister confirm that it is being serviced in a timely manner?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you again. This one may take us a little longer to answer, but with your leave, we will try to keep within time. In September 2002, the total debt of Petrotrin was 3.3 billion TT dollars. By the time we came into office in 2010, the total debt has skyrocketed to TT $12.4 billion, which is almost a 400% increase between 2002 to 2010. Of course, this was during your tenure, sir, when you were in government. The main driver, I am answering, there's no need to rush me, I will give you your answer. You asked and I will answer. The main driver of this debt burden included the issue of 2 bonds, one in 2007 for US $750 million, and the second bond in 2009 for US $850 million. So 2007, 2009, these 2 bonds were issued under the former government. They were raised to support projects in the refinery, including the famous gasoline optimization program, which experienced significant cost overruns and delays due to misdirection of Petrotrin by the former regime. We know too that the ill-fated gas to liquids project, financed by Petrotrin from a loan from the international market. This infamous GTL project was a flagship project of the former government that has to date cost Petrotrin over TT $2.7 billion, and that would have contributed to the debt position of the company. At present, the total foreign debt of Petrotrin is the equivalent of 13.8 billion. So we inherited 12.4 billion. We had further liabilities with the GTL project, which took us to $13.8 billion at this time. The international debt is being serviced on a timely manner, and the company has met all its payments.
Leader of the opposition.
To the Honorable Prime Minister, has there been any adjustments to Petrotrin's credit rating?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you again. The company's credit rating was adjusted by Standard & Poor's from BBB to BBB minus. The company is still in investment grade. This adjustment was mainly driven by the outlook for the refining business globally, which is being impacted by lower refinery margins, which is a function of the shale oil revolution in the US. Other international oil companies with refineries outside of the US have also been downgraded, and refineries in Europe have been closed. Thank you.
Leader of the opposition.
To the Honorable Prime Minister, is there any likelihood of the Ministry of Finance and the Economy being called upon to service any of Petrotrin's foreign debt?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir. The government does not anticipate that the Ministry of Finance would have to step in to support Petrotrin in meeting its international debt obligations.
The Honorable Leader of the opposition.
Does Petrotrin have a chief financial officer at this time?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
The answer is no. Petrotrin has a Vice President Finance acting. This person is Anita Bruno at this time.
The Honorable Leader of the opposition.
Based on allegations in the public domain on corruption in the award of multi-million-dollar contracts at WASA, would the Honorable Prime Minister agree that this warrants a commission of inquiry?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
Honorable Speaker, there is no controversial WASA project, and as such, there's nothing which would warrant a commission of inquiry.
Is the Prime Minister aware that it has been published and it can be supported by a number of stories coming out of WASA that the... Mr. Chairman, would you restrain...
Members allow the Honorable Member to speak in silence. Continue, Honorable Member.
Is the Prime Minister aware that information provided in the public domain indicates that a number of WASA contracts to private contractors are in fact being conducted by WASA when the contractor is being paid using WASA's material, WASA's personnel?
Honorable Prime Minister.
Prime Minister, I am not so aware, Honorable Speaker, and should the Honorable Member for Diego Martin West have that information, we'll be very happy to receive it, to pass it to the authorities who have the duty to investigate any such fraudulent practice, if there is any.
The Honorable Leader of the opposition.
Based on the revelations that the sum of $34 million has been issued to a Lysport contractor, of which the Prime Minister may not be aware, for absolutely no benefit, would the Prime Minister agree that this warrants a commission of inquiry?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
This file, Honorable Speaker, has been sent to the DPP and the Commissioner of Police, and we await their findings.
The Honorable Leader of the opposition. Any further supplemental?
Is the Prime Minister indicating that insofar as the matter has gone to the Commissioner of Police, that no commission of inquiry is valid or relevant?
The Honorable Prime Minister.
In addition to the file being sent to the DPP and the Commissioner of Police, we have also asked the Attorney General, through the Solicitor General, to see whether there may be any civil remedies that may be available to the state for recovery of such funds. Apart from that, there are only two fronts we can go on, the criminal front and the civil. On the civil, the Attorney General, together with SolGen, they are looking into ways, if possible, to have civil remedies. With respect to the criminal remedies, as I say, those files have been sent to the right authorities, the Commissioner of Police, Director of Public Prosecutions, who have full capacity for investigations in this regard.
The Honorable Leader of the opposition.
Play, Mr. Speaker, to the Honorable Prime Minister. Is the Prime Minister in a position to say whether any persons or agencies are still being paid under the heading or the program of Lysport?
That's a new question, but the Honorable Prime Minister can ask if you...
I can make inquiries with respect to that, but it is my respectful view that no one should be paid at this time. We will make inquiries and make it be known in due course.
The honourable member for Point Fortin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will Trinidad, and question to the Honourable Prime Minister, will Trinidad and Tobago be adopting the Caribbean Court of Justice as the country's final court of appeal in both civil and criminal matters? And if so, could the Prime Minister say when and in what time frame?
The honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The abolition of the Privy Council and replacement with the CCJ is a matter to be decided by the people. As part of the constitutional reform, the issue of holding a referendum is being considered as part of the package put forward by the Constitution Reform Commission. This is a matter that ought to be put to a referendum at the appropriate time. Yes, in law, we do not have any provision in our Constitution for the holding of such a referendum. But you may recall when we had the Constitutional Reform Commission's report, this was one of their recommendations. And again, in due course, such matters could be taken on board. Let me, however, say that I had sought the concurrence of the CARICOM heads with respect to acceding to the criminal jurisdiction, a partial accession to the Caribbean Court of Justice in the criminal jurisdiction. We had sought that concurrence. However, while some heads agreed, some did not agree, and given the way CARICOM works, you must have a unanimous decision for such to be implemented. That was the state of play. As I say, we will pursue the other avenue in due course with respect to seeking the decision of the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
The honourable member
Audrey?
for Point Fortin.
Honourable Prime Minister, did you not at a CARICOM Heads of Government meeting in Suriname raise the matter and gave a commitment to the CARICOM partners that your government will review the approach? Subsequent to that, you came to the Honourable House and you announced that you would be bringing legislation to the House to secure the abolition of appeals to the Privy Council in all criminal matters.
The honourable Prime Minister.
The honourable member is correct in some respects. I do not recall if it was a meeting in Suriname, but I know it was a CARICOM heads of meeting, and in that CARICOM heads of meeting, I asked for the concurrence of heads to allow Trinidad and Tobago to partially accede to the Caribbean Court of Justice with respect to the criminal jurisdiction of the court. And that was the statement I made, that we'll bring the legislation because we thought we would get that concurrence. As I say, some members agreed, some did not. And let us not forget, whilst in the CARICOM, there's pressure on Trinidad and Tobago to do this, to take full accession to the CCJ. The majority of the Caribbean countries have not acceded to the Caribbean Court of Justice. It's a kind of, Trinidad and Tobago, some pressure being brought from some quarters. Should I have said that we will bring legislation? Yes, as I say, it was respect to the partial accession to the criminal jurisdiction of the CCJ.
The honourable member for St. Joseph. No, we have a time constraint and I want to make sure everybody has.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question to the Honourable Prime Minister. Could the Honourable Prime Minister state the reason or reasons for the work stoppage at the St. Joseph Police Station and state when work will recommence?
The honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir. This St. Joseph Police Station construction began in June 2014. This station had been promised for over 10 years. Work began June of this year. Work was suspended due to requests from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to revise the initial designs. The matter has been resolved and work will recommence within 2 weeks' time.
The honourable member for St. Joseph.
Thank you. Question number 15 to the Honourable Prime Minister. Has the government put measures in place to safeguard our coastal borders? And if so, could the Honourable Prime Minister briefly state those measures?
The honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir. This one, as I say, requires a lot more discourse than this question time would permit. So I will just briefly put some of the measures in place and ask the Honourable Minister of National Security at the next sitting to give a full statement with respect to this. So have we put measures to safeguard the coastal borders? List those measures. My government has always recognized the value of protection of our very porous borders as an island state or two islands. It was deemed necessary to ensure that security measures on land were in place, and I did say it, we want to fight on the ground before we proceeded onto the porous borders as the next phase of protecting those borders. In this regard, the fight on the ground, the Rapid Response Unit was implemented, CCTVs were introduced, dedicated police highway patrols reintroduced, which has brought some reduction in serious crime. With respect to the illicit drug trade and arms trade, scanners for the nation sports have been procured and others are to come in, again dealing with borders. One of these is already in operation at Port of Spain. A new border protection naval operational plan must involve Coast Guard installations implemented around the island, fast patrol interceptors assigned specifically to each installation, as this will ensure that our country will now be properly secured. This could not have been done by the OPVs, which were these very large vessels patrolling 100 miles off our east coast, really to deal with the exclusive economic zone rather than the closing down of the borders. This is not where the majority of the drug smuggling and weapons smuggling takes place. It is around us. So the maritime wall that we propose is a three-pronged naval operational plan devised to combat illicit firearm and drug trade. This plan, to be coordinated by the National Security Operations Center, comprises 1, interceptors. This will be the internal line of maritime security, whereby from several strategically placed Coast Guard installations, they will patrol the bays, the coastal areas, and our shorelines up to 4 miles out to sea. Secondly, fast patrol vessels, crafts, 6 such vessels that will patrol TNT territorial waters within the 6-mile to the 12-mile outreach from our shoreline. Long-range patrol vessel, these would be about 60 to 75 meters in length. They would patrol from 12 miles to 200 miles from our coast, mostly the north and east coast. This will provide security for our economic zone, as well as protect our resources in the zone just outside the territorial waters. A three-prong plan, the interceptors, the fast patrol crafts, the long-range patrol vessels. The coastal borders would be given a further boost by the 4 Augusta Westland twin-engine multi-purpose helicopters, which we already have. Hovercraft would also be acquired to patrol low waters and the Gulf of Paria close to the shoreline. In addition to these, unmanned aerial vessels would also be patrolling the coastline to ensure not just a deterrent to stop the illegal drug trade and entry of weapons and immigrants, but also provide assistance to citizens and fishermen who are being attacked by pirates and to vessels and crews that are in distress. May I say, it was only last week in Cabinet, after all the work done by the Ministry of National Security, that a note was brought to the Cabinet last Thursday with respect to the purchasing of some of these vessels.
Speaker?
Yes, the honourable member.
Honorable Prime Minister, of all the initiatives mentioned, after 5 years of power, have any of those initiatives actually been put in place?
The honourable Prime Minister.
Yes, the CCTV cameras, the scanners, they're all in place. Of course, what do you think the scanners scan on the ports? CCTV cameras. They scan the containers that are coming in, vessels that are coming in. So the scanners are already in place with more to come. CCTV cameras will also be useful on the borders at the ports. I mean, you talked about people bringing in containers with chicken, but with drugs together with the chicken. Should these scanners operate at all our ports, we would be in a better position for that entry. With respect to the vessels, those vessels, as I said, the note came to Cabinet, but you had to put the groundwork into place. It wasn't just flying off to buy the soup? To buy a suit that never functioned. It's not like that. You have your advanced teams, they go to study the vessels, do the technical work on it, look for the best value for money, as Minister is saying. So it is not a process that is overnight. And we will have these vessels within this fiscal year.
The honourable member for St. Joseph, last question.
No more supplementals?
No, well, if you want to ask your last question, that's it, at
Okay,
2:05,
thank you.
30 minutes up.
Question number 16, could the Honorable Prime Minister state the government's reason or reasons not to seek external loan funding for the Point Fortin Highway?
The honourable Prime Minister.
At that time, it was it was considered by the Cabinet and by the Ministry of Finance that it would be funded through Treasury deposits, a 1.5 billion TT approaching the local market to service payments for this fiscal year and also to assist with the liquidity in our market. So we utilized funding locally that was available locally in the, within the Treasury deposit system.
The Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Does the Prime Minister consider that decision to be prudent for such a large capital expenditure project not to seek external loan funding?
As,
Prime Minister.
not to answer a question with a question, but I will answer this question. Is the Honourable Member saying that it is inappropriate to use local funding here in Trinidad and Tobago rather than foreign debt external funding? And if so, your external debt is already so high. So if it was, and I'm sure the member for Chaguanas West, who was very involved in that decision, some very heated discussions, in fact, would be able to give you some more details as to this course that was adopted.
The Honourable Member for Point Fortin.
Honourable Prime Minister, could you state the source of the $1.5 billion loan facility, which is identified in a loan item as a loan item under the Ministry of Works for the financing of the current tranche of the highway?
No, that question is not before us, and the Prime Minister didn't raise that as part of a response.
It has to do with the loan funding.
Yeah, but it's not part of the response that she gave, the Honourable Prime Minister. Let's go on.
Urgent questions?
The Honourable Member for Diego Martin Central.
Thank the government for the applause. Question. Mr. Speaker, question to the Honorable Minister of Public Utilities. First question. What are the reasons for the recent increased frequency of electrical supply outages in the Western Peninsula and across the country, which cause citizens to be inconvenienced without a supply for lengthy periods?
The Honourable Minister of Public Utilities.